we're going to go over the SAR9 from SAR USA. This is being imported from Turkey from SAR Solmaz out of Istanbul. So the history behind this pistol is kind of interesting. Now, if you know anything about Turkey, they're a very prideful country, and apparently the Turkish military was looking at getting Glocks as their standard service pistol. I guess they weren't happy with their domestic offerings, or the time was up and they were just like, let's do what some other people are doing. Now, being a prideful country, the government was like, you know what, we want them to stay domestic, at least my interpretation of what I was told, kind of paraphrasing. Basically, the government went to SAR Solmaz and said, our military wants to get Glocks. And what I assume the way the conversation went is, they probably said something to the effect of, they want a Glock, give them a Glock. But you know what? Make it better than a Glock. And I believe that's why there's a lot of influences from Glock. You'll see it in the slide, you'll see it in some of the internals. And for the most part, it's like a Glock inside, but it's amazingly different, but in a more efficient way. So I think they actually did better than, I think they did something that Glock should have done for the modular handgun program. I've never seen the internals of the Glock that was submitted for the modular handgun program. But, you know, I think that this pistol probably took everything that Glock should have done and actually did it with this. But you also note that there is some significant influence from the P30 or VP9 in the way that the grip is as well. Now, with all that said, this pistol was awarded an NSN from actual NATO testing. It actually went through trials. It has an NSN. The reports are going to be coming out in the future, and SAR USA is going to be proudly announcing it when they get the information and it's, I guess, declassified or available for viewing. And I'll be doing updates on that as well. But according to the SAR USA, there were 3 different types of tests. There was a factory test, the NATO test, and police test. Police tests, they did 50,000 rounds. This pistol passed above all the others that they tested. Not hard to believe with these other tests that were conducted, such as the NATO test. The NATO test, now as far as round counts are concerned, this pistol says that, or SAR USA says that this pistol did 90,000 rounds, and it exceeded the performance of all other pistols that it was going up against during the testing phase with NATO. Now, I'm not sure what that's all going to look like, but 15,000 rounds, as far as I know, based on the other pistols that have been through testing, such as the P01 that was also awarded an NSN, it went through 15,000 rounds, and then it did, you know, a failure to 30,000 rounds, and my interpretation of that is that it was going as long as it can with operator level maintenance. So whatever you can do from field stripping, as far as replacing parts or whatever, then you can continue doing the test until you have a major parts breakage, which will require you to break down the pistol, like with punches and stuff like that, getting tools involved. So that's what I'm assuming it is. I don't know for sure, but it said that this pistol went to 90,000 rounds. Based on my experience with it, that's probably the most likely thing that happened. Now, of course, we got to wait for the results to come out and see if it's in there. So also we have the more extreme one, which is from the factory. They say that this pistol is good for 150,000 rounds, that they tested it. I'm guessing, my guess, based on my experience, is that they got that number because they probably actually did test it, and they probably tested it a lot, and they probably found that there was a part in here that lasted 150,000 rounds as long as you did regular maintenance and all other parts were replaced, but there is a part in here that can last up to 150,000 rounds. So I don't think that actually is the frame itself. I think it's actually the grip module, which is basically the internal chassis that actually houses the frame rails. But we'll go ahead and get into that later. But now I want to go ahead and take you to the table, and we're going to go ahead and look over the features and discuss this pistol in a little bit more detail. Okay, so the first thing that you'll notice is that there are some obvious influences between the Glock 17 and the HK VP9. Now, you can see on here that it follows the frame very closely to the VP9 as far as the grip is concerned, and it does have interchangeable side panels and back straps. So you can also see that it has finger grooves. Now the pattern on here is different, and it is a little bit more slippery than a VP9 or a P30, but you know, generally it's very close. So anyways, the other thing you'll notice is very much like the Glock slide as far as the profile is concerned, and you'll see that in the internals as well, but you have front and rear slide serrations, and even in the front, this kind of reminds me of the Gen 5 Glock. The front sight is very much like a Glock sight, how it basically screws in, and the rear sight, you have your 3-dot profile here, but look at this little area right here on the rear sight. Like, you could actually put like a dash of paint in there to kind of give you, you know, 2 dots and a dash to kind of really confirm alignment with your sights. So of course you'll notice here with the controls you have a manual safety. This is not on the actual pistol. In Turkey, this was done for import reasons. Typically it's just a pin. SAR USA claims, at least they told me, that they're looking at getting a pin that they can replace this with. It was just for import reasons that SAR SAR9 had to come up with something. And I think they did a pretty good job with the texturing here. It's very much like what you find on the magazine release here, which is reversible. And you get 2 15-round magazines with this pistol, and you can see that the releases are on both sides here, and it is reversible. So you have the slide stop here, which actually is quite beefy, and it could act as a slide release. You know, you can call it whatever, but you can definitely tell that it was intended to be used as both. And I am pretty impressed with the construction of the pistol so far, and of course the safety is ambidextrous. It's on both sides, but that's the only control, really. But you can reverse the magazine release. And the takedown notches are right here, and they're on both sides. They have a pretty good texture to them, pretty solid. And the extractor here is kind of different. It does have some red paint in there, but I have yet to actually get this pistol loaded and actually get that red paint to come out. It doesn't really show, but it's supposed to be more tactile than it is, you know, visible, but it stays at this position, you know, even when loaded, so it's barely even there. So I would not, you know, use that as any kind of confirmation. And as far as the rear sight is concerned, again, you know, it has a little screw here for adjustment. So now let's go ahead and break down the pistol and look at the internals. So the first thing you do is go ahead and pull the trigger, and you don't need to relieve it any. You can just pull down and the slide will come off quite easily. Now, just at a quick glance, you can see the obvious inspirations that SAR SAR9 had from Glock. And again, this kind of leads me to believe that the government was like, give them a Glock, but make it better. Now, of course, the recoil spring kind of resembles what you see on the Gen 4, but it is metal. And so it's a very thick steel. And the barrel, profile of a Glock barrel, polished feed ramp, and beveled at the mouth all the way around. And again, nice recessed crown, and it has standard rifling, as you can see there. Now, on the slide, as you'll note, the front sight here has a little screw just like you find on Glock, so you can screw on the sight, unscrew it, and these are metal. So you also have the obvious inspirations of Glock here with the firing pin block, the striker, and it takes down just like a Glock. Now then you have this little area right here, this recessed area. That is what this goes into. This is the actual slide stop or slide release. This beefy thing goes in there, and this holds it on very well. And I want you to go ahead and note the size of this thing. This is one solid piece. This is incredibly beefy. This isn't just a bent over piece of metal that's being pushed by the follower of the magazine. This is one big chunk of steel, and this spring is very tight. So this is a very well built pistol as far as you know, thickness, durability, and everything else. It's just very chunky. It's not heavy. It's just every component, it seems, was overbuilt for what it's supposed to do, and I believe that's why it probably did really well in the NATO testing. If what they're saying is true, that's probably why it did so well. Now, I want you to note what I was talking about as far as the modularity. You can see the frame rails here and here, and I want you to note that they are connected all the way through, from here from the front here you can see this gap. That's because this area right here can all come out. And they're different components, but they are housed by the grip module, which is basically what holds onto these frame rails. And it pinches right at the front here. It's all connected all the way around, but it's pinched right here. The locking block can come out. The takedown system right here can come out. And you can take out the firing control area. So it breaks down in very simple pieces, and of course it houses the slide stop, slide release, whatever you want to call it. And it's held in by this pin here, this pin, or this pin, and obviously this pin is going to hold on to this system, so they have to be pulled out. Those 3 pins have to be pulled out. For us, we have to punch this out and pull out the safety, then punch these little things out, and we can just take this out. This is what I was talking about when they built this better than the Glock, and they probably should have taken some cues from the Turks as far as modularity is concerned, because this whole system right here, they could actually make like a Glock 19 and a Glock 26 just based off of how this whole system is right here. And they could shorten the grip, and basically with this one set, they could make all these components, and all they have to do is shorten the frame and the slide, and you know, they have a modular handgun basically. You could take out all these pieces right here and you'll have a bare frame, except for like these little metal inserts in the frame, but that's not really much of a function. I think it's just like more of a durability thing for the frame, as far as like keeping it from, you know, I guess vibrating or whatever if you're going to be using lights and lasers on your gun. But anyways, I guess they're strengthening points, I guess you could say. But as you can see, just very well built. Obviously influences from Glock, disconnector and everything. I would actually say that the trigger is better than a Glock. Not hard to do for a lot of people's opinion, but the disconnector works the same way. Again, it's very beefy, and yeah, it's just very well built on the inside, and you can definitely tell the obvious influences. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the SAR9, but let me go ahead and get this back together and we'll wrap up. Now to wrap up, I want to talk about price. Now this pistol retails for about $450, and you can get a stainless, you know, slide, a nice shiny slide for about $499 MSRP. Now online I got this thing for $350, and here's the thing. I think this is a great value. I personally am really unhappy with these safeties. They've caused me a bit of problems, you know, in pain, but it doesn't affect your shooting. But my advice for this, if you're going to be shooting it, is to get as forward as you can, not as high as you can. That'll just happen naturally. There's not much of a difference between this and this. Not enough of a difference, but here you can see I avoid the safeties right here, and then when I try to get really high on it right away, you can see I'm eating up that safety. So that's going to cause you pain. Rather than just going forward, you can avoid that. Now again, this was for import reasons that they put that there. They're looking at developing a pin to replace that. So I'm really hoping that that comes out soon. And you know, I think that this pistol would be a 100% good pistol if, you know, they get that in soon. But in the meantime, that's the only downside when shooting this pistol. And of course, first getting this thing out of the box, it is going to kick a little bit more than when it's broken in. I got the opportunity to shoot this at SHOT Show, and the recoil was a bit less than, you know, this pistol, because this pistol is new. The one they had at SHOT Show had been run through the ringer. So, you know, there is going to be a difference in recoil, and I'm going to be doing updates on this pistol, and I'm pretty happy that I got it. And I got it at a great price, so it was a steal for me. But 2 15-round magazines, they don't even have spare ones available on, at SAR USA. They're going to be available pretty soon, but if you get it tomorrow, you're probably stuck with it, with the 2 magazines, the 2 15-round magazines. It says that it has a capacity of 17 rounds, but I don't think they're being imported yet, and so far I haven't noticed any compatibility with any other magazines that I have in my collection, so we'll see. But that is a downside that you might want to consider. But overall, I think this is a great pistol. I think that, you know, it has great potential, and I think Glock could learn a few things from this pistol as far as the modularity and how well they were able to, you know, build this pistol. And it really is a testament to the Turkish quality, that they're able to produce. They take a lot of pride in their work, and this pistol shows every bit of that. That they're very serious about developing firearms, and when push comes to shove, they can actually really surprise you. So anyways, thanks a lot for watching. You know, check out my article at spotterup.com for more details on this pistol, and I look forward to giving you guys updates in the future.